So after all this time, Unity now has come back and said that they're going to be stopping the runtime fee. However, it's still not that very easy, so let's talk about it. So it looks like Unity and the developer community are trying to make amends. And in the way that Unity wants to do this, it seems that we're moving towards a greater solution. But what ultimately seems that it is like two steps forward, they're still seeming to be taking two steps back in this whole entire fiasco. And I really, really, really think that the goodwill that they're building up here is still not going to be enough to have everybody just cheering, ranting, saying, hey, old Unity is back. So one of the main arguments that developers had with Unity was the runtime fee. It was very unclear if you released your game for Game Pass or if you did PlayStation Plus, who was actually going to be in charge of paying that fee, as well as if you released like a tech demo on, let's say, itch.io, and let's say for some odd reason this game picked up in popularity, you had a whole bunch of people playing it, now you accrued runtime fees, and even with this tech demo, you're still in charge of paying for it, even though it's not a full-fledged game, even though there's no way of monetizing it. It was just very, very unclear on how much we were going to be racking up here. There were certain developers that were talking about accruing, if this was possible, over $1 million, maybe $4 million, just for a snippet or maybe about 1 month of gameplay.
You know, the goal is as simple as saying that it's a legitimate user of your software on a particular distribution channel. So, okay, what's a legitimate user? Well, a legitimate user would be an actual user, not your automated use, not, you know, whether there was piracy, not someone that had bought it and instantly refunded it, but like a legitimate first time that someone was engaging with your free-to-play game or your paid game. What's a distribution channel? Well, an app store is a distribution channel. So if that user went to like a particular store and you know, bought it or downloaded it or whatever, then you would start thinking of that as sort of doing it. Now, if they had multiple devices or they reinstalled it, you don't count those multiple times, right? Because I might have gotten the same thing in my library from a store that I can use on a couple of different devices. Great. That's one, not two. So there's a bunch more examples that are around that in the FAQ, and we're very committed to making sure that we give more details around that. But our intent is very simple, which is that, you know, the first time that your game with our runtime engages with a very legitimate user on a distribution channel, like, use that as a count. And then again, we think that many times that's will be much less than this 2.5% revenue share, and so you could pay less or less through that, or you just go to the revenue share if you didn't want to track that.
I don't think he fully sees the grand picture, because again, Unity's trying to get more investment from all the investors. They're trying to recoup all the money. They've let go 25% of their work staff. I get it. You know, you're trying to bring that money in. You're trying to make this more of a profitable business, as well as continue the upward trajectory of your revenue. But what he doesn't realize is that us as the hardworking developers, you know, we're more focused on trying to bring our creations to the masses, as many gamers, as many players as possible. Not all of us, and I really do mean this, not all of us are really in tune to how much the engagement is, how much everything is going on. We're tracking numbers, but we're not tracking as much engagement as possible. Especially in my case, where I'm a one-man team, there's physically no way that I can pay somebody else to keep track of these numbers. If I'm self-reporting in any instance here, my numbers are going to be skewed. There's really no good way of keeping track of how this is going to affect everybody, how we're actually going to be keeping track of these numbers. How is my reporting numbers going to equate with this? And if I am hardcore keeping track of this and I'm giving them the details as a solo developer who doesn't really bring in as much revenue as possible, and what happens when my game XYZ, I put it on Game Pass, it makes in their eyes, it seems that it makes $100,000, but in all actuality, the game's only brought in $20. There's a lot of discrepancies, and I don't think Unity is actually taking that into effect. What they really should be doing, in my opinion, is not relying on the runtime fee at all. We really should be getting rid of this. The subscription that they have for the year, for whichever license that you pick, either the Pro or the top tier, I think is the Enterprise, that should be their main focus. If they make those more appealing and lower the threshold, this wouldn't be a big deal. Because as a solo developer, I can't realistically pay $1,200 a year. I mean, what is it, a month or whatever, to re-releasing tech demos, especially how fast that I'm creating my games. If you guys end up using more of the strategy of, like, let's say a game maker where it's like $20 a month, or something more realistic, hey, you know what? I'm more likely to take that subscription, continue doing what I'm doing, and you'll make more money off of it because it takes me longer for me to create my game. And then with all the other incentives that they have, which is their cloud storage, their what is it? The cloud storage, their get repositories, and all those other features that I actually really like using. If they gave me a way for me to actually, because they charge for all of this stuff when you by how much you hit in your threshold. If you guys actually continued with that aspect of it, oh, by all means, yes, you know what, that can actually track my engagement way better. I would be more inclined to pay. But for every time that the game is started up, for every time that the game is built, for every time that the game I have to do X, Y, and Z for me to be able to keep track of, as well as keep track of the engagement, that's way further out of the scope of just like a single developer or even maybe a handful of team developers. uh, it makes no sense, especially going forward with all of this. And they continue to to keep going down this rabbit hole, and it just makes no sense, as well as just being so infuriating on the whole entire process, because they're not giving you anything of substance. They're just asking for more money, and I get it. I am an investor in Unity because since since college, since 2013, maybe 2014, when I first got into Unity, I really, really, really like the software. You can see it on my channel, as if you go back, there was games that I tried to make for the Ouya, there was games that I tried to make for mobile, tried to make for web, and I really do like the software. But it's just this absurd this absurd part that we've gotten to, where every time my game is ran, every time that someone wants to play my game, I'm getting charged. It hurts to try to even make this into a beneficial business model, let alone just want to continue, even with the goodwill that they do offer here. Because yeah, they've made things a little bit more simpler, and they've fleshed out a little bit more stuff, according to the CEO. Because even in this article that that GameDeveloper.com posted, they seem to be trying to get there with the goodwill. But the problem is that we're not there. It really does make things harder, especially for all the seasoned veterans of Unity. I I like Unity. I really do like Unity. I don't want to switch to a Godot. I've tried. I don't like it. I don't want to go back to Game Maker. Game Maker is very restrictive on the stuff that I want to do. Even though the game that I'm working on is 2D, I can switch over. It's not a big deal for me. But I like Unity. I've always been a proponent of Unity. I've never liked Unreal Engine. I understand what it can do, but it doesn't do what I want it to do. And that's the problem. And I don't think that Unity has the developer in mind, even with these changes. Because even with the unanswered things about, like, PlayStation Plus and Game Pass, where they said that, you know what, it might not be you. It's going to be the publisher or the person who puts it on their distributing site, which still it it's kind of hard to even consider that because you don't know if it is running off of Game Pass or if the engagement is coming off of someone that actually purchased it. Because even in these words, they're still wishy-washy. But I just don't know. We're so beyond the point of trusting Unity, and I don't think that trust will. I don't think the trust will be back anytime soon, but I'm just happy that we're getting closer to it. Like I said, if they want to continue with the subscription model and as well as charge for their services, for the multiplayer and all that other stuff like that, yeah, by all means, charge me for that. But the runtime fee is just a little ridiculous, and they know it. They know it. That's why we continue to backpedal on every single situation when it comes to it. But you know what? I might be wrong. I would love to hear what you guys have to say in the comment section below. Make sure to rate, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you guys on the next one. Peace.